with that, I am going to introduce Catherine. Catherine is not only a cancer coach, but she is a strong woman of God. She is also a thriver from breast cancer. She is also a retired registered critical care nurse, and you're going to hear that in her presentation because her level of knowledge is not just through training as a cancer coach. It comes from years and years of teaching and practice, right? So she's an active Rotarian, a distinguished Toastmaster, and owner of Bracashirts, and she'll explain that a little later what that is. Through her cancer experience, she brings her critical care teaching background and cancer knowledge to help cancer patients through the Cancer Education Series that she teaches and coaches through. She does public speaking on Cancer Education Series, and we are just getting a taste of what that is. So you guys are just going to be amazed at what she presents. And again, it's just a taste of, I think, an 8 module series of things that she teaches on. So using her mantra, knowledge is power, Catherine also provides individual cancer coaching and cancer support groups as well. With that, I am honored to present to you Catherine. So the floor is yours.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dawn. I am so excited that I've been able to have the opportunity to meet you and your wonderful organizations, because your organization's philosophies are exactly in line with what I'm teaching. And how best is this, that I have had that opportunity to meet you and provide you with support. And I hope I can always be a source for you at any time. So HealingStrong, thank you very much for having me here to speak to you tonight. And I'm going to get this PowerPoint presentation going, okay? Have you got me there?
Not yet. There we go.
It is now.
Yep, there you go.
There you go. And whoop, and I did change my title to Immunology and the Impact of Stress on Our Health. And of course, it's also on cancer. But what I want to speak to you tonight particularly is how our body works in a complementary fashion that provides balance and homeostasis, and how our brain, our body, our mind, our spirit transcends across all of the care continuum and everything we do in our life. So I'm going to speak specifically on what I call my triad, which is a biochemical, I'm going to talk about biomedical, and the psychosocial aspects of healing in cancer and stress, and how stress impacts every single one of those. And this has a new term, it's called psychoneuroimmunology. Well, I can barely speak it, not alone spell it. However, I do want you to know that really psychology, neurology, immunology, in essence, is body, mind, and spirit. And how our body works in stress is what we're going to talk about in detail tonight. When we sense stress, our whole body has this huge flux of hormone shifts that, in the presence of stress, that cascade from the adrenals, which are little organs right above your kidney, and they secrete a hormone called cortisol. And the cortisol supplies all your muscles instantly with glucose. But it also has other things that it does. The cortisol also prevents insulin production because your body needs that sugar for many reasons, because you need the energy to exit stage left. And supporting that is that cascade of cortisol and epinephrine that's going to increase your heart rate, dilate pupils, and get those muscles activated so you can lead and manage that stress. But the nice thing is that feedback also has a loop, so that when the stress is up and the stressor's gone, you can return and balance. And having that's why I had a scale on that first page, because It is a delicate balance, and that homeostasis that we are looking for. But I can honestly say it's not easy. So let's take a look so that you understand. Now, this is a pretty complicated looking diagram here, okay? But don't be too frightened about it. The autonomic nervous system is divided into two areas, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Now, the sympathetic is, think of the sympathetic and stress, and that's our triple F response. You can see it down there: fright, flight, fight. And how the innovation of all the organs throughout this process, I'm going to be talking to that specifically tonight. But then we have the triple R response, and that's the parasympathetic system. Now, the parasympathetic, think of it as the parent. And what does your parent say? Rest, relax, repair, take the time to recover. Does that sound familiar? When we are experiencing stress, the sympathetic system has a very unique response. Our heart rate increases, the airway relaxes because we want to be able to breathe so that we can have that energy in the oxygen exchange when we have to get out of that stress situation. Also, in our abdomen, think about what is going on, not only cardiovascular-wise, but in our abdomen, our stomach. Automatically, gastric motility is decreased. And also, all of the hormones and all of your digestive enzymes, the same thing. But when we are in that state of parasympathetic, where we are resting and we are relaxed, it's just like after exercising, you have your heart rate starting to slow. And then your stomach can get everything back, that motility back going. And then the gallbladder starts, and then you're eating properly, so everything works fine. Remember, the whole thing is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system working together so that you have balance in your body, called homeostasis. But let's not talk just about our body. I want to specifically think back, why are we stressed? What is causing this stress? Let's look back. Back in 1970s, the chances of getting cancer were 1 in 15. It wasn't so bad at all. But now it's 1 in 5. And it went 1970s, 1 in 15. Then in the 80s, 1 in 12. And then it was 1 in 8. And it went down, down, down. We're going in the wrong direction. Here we are. We're told causes of cancer are, well, if you're a female and if you have hormone problems, there are tons of things that we are told ourselves why cancer exists. If you were late menopause, if you are no longer having children until you're 30 years of age, because we are seeing later and later women having children. So this has a large impact on our hormones, and that's one more cause. And the biggest thing that I'm finding the Cancer Society is saying is, okay, ladies, we're just going to feel it on the first. And then they say, don't forget to go to the doctor and make sure you have your mammograms. You got to have those mammograms. And we're not hearing much else about that. And they're saying, okay, there's genetics in there. Genetics is about 2 to 5% of why you get cancer. But then I think, well, just a minute here. You've been seeing the same thing for, I don't know, since I've been a junior nurse back in the 70s. And it's the same thing over and over. What I'm finding is that that's not good enough, because that's only 25% of the problem. New studies have been done, and what they're coming up with is that 75% of illness today, and that's not just cancer, any illness, is related to what we eat. It's all about our lifestyle and the need for us to make change. And change is a choice. You do have the power to change. Now, sometimes we have to pray on that because it's not easy. But when it comes to change, it's not just changing our diet, but it's exercise. It's learning work-life balance. When you are experiencing stress and recognizing that stress state, what can you do? What can we do to counteract that stress? Because the whole premise of all that stress is that we have to have the counterbalance. And here I am telling you, okay, so there's major changes from, 1 in 15 down to 1 in 5. And I'm going, but you know what? We've got all this automation in our life, and there's dishwashers, and we've got all the modern conveniences in life. What's the problem? What's the problem? And I really think when we look back, think back, what was going on in the 1970s? Well, it's quite obvious. Mom was barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Oh, yes. Back then, Mom was at home and she was cooking a nice, healthy meal. And we sat down together as a family and we ate together. We prayed together. We talked about our problems together right at the dinner table. And that had a lot of calming and togetherness. We knew where we were going. The family was a unit. Let's fast forward today. And oh my God, the family unit has totally changed. I don't know about you, but it's Robert's going swimming and this one's going to hockey. Someone else has got soccer. Susie's got dance lessons. Someone else has music lessons. And the whole world is crazy. The whole family unit is stressed as a whole. And in fact, when that's happening, what's the first thing we do? Okay, well, both parents, one has got everyone dropping off these ones, and then Mom's dropping off those ones. We'll just grab something quick to eat at home. So we'll just, let's make it Wendy's or McDonald's tonight or pizza. And the next thing you know, every day we're constantly experiencing stress because we're running the kids around, or we've got our own schedules and doctor appointments, and life is so busy. And we're working shifts. Heck, we just got finished with COVID. And the family unit, again, totally disrupted. But what's important is that we now know to stop and think, what are we doing here? Is there something I can change? How can I make that difference? Oh, and yes, you can. This is my happy hormone slide. And I love to talk about our hormones because this is what is going to make the parasympathetic scale come up so that you're counterbalancing those stresses. One of those is dopamine. And that's the reward chemical in our body. And it's when we're eating really good food and when we've achieved a goal and how great we feel about it. oh, after you have really good sleep, how refreshed you are, especially when you wake up and say a prayer and thank the Lord for just one more day. And how nice it is to have the glorious sunshine coming through that window. Or ladies, I think we've got this one down pat, okay? A nice hot bath. So hot, not even the guys want to join in. And a little bit of wine and absolute bliss and relaxation. Now, there's the dopamine flowing, ladies. There's the dopamine right there. But you know what? We also have 3 other hormones there that are working. Now, guys, here's your macho side, okay? You know, the weightlifting thing, exercise is everything, okay? And what I'm finding is that when it comes up, when we look at our endorphins is endogenous morphine. And our body produces morphine naturally. So what kind of things can you do to exercise? Well, look at me. I have bilateral knee replacements, and I can tell you I'm not going running. That is out of the question. So we all have to take a look at what's within the scope of our abilities. You know, for me, I have a chair and I do chair exercises. And I go for a walk around the block. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to have all these expensive things, although it's nice if you can. But let's be realistic today. What kind of things can you do to tap into those endorphins? And it's not just exercise, but even when you have laughter. I remember back in the 90s, I was in Texas and they had this theater and Phyllis Diller was on stage. And oh my God. So I laughed for 4 hours. This lady did this for 4 hours of joke after joke and humor. I almost peed my pants several times because I laughed so hard. And I never thought about it. And the next day, my abdomen hurt so bad I couldn't believe it. And then I thought, you know what? Those are the hormones going. Man, I didn't realize laughing was that important, and then it was exercise. So maybe we should be looking at watching some funny movies, not the war movies, not this macho stuff. Why don't we just watch these good old-fashioned movies that make us gut-wrenching laugh? Because that'll get our endorphins running. And combined, all of these hormones really help work together to establish that homeostasis and once again, support us in everything we're doing. Now, if you're so lucky to live in Florida and California, you automatically get that sun thing. I go to Florida in January, actually in October for 6 weeks and then in January. But I can honestly say, soaking up that sun, I tell you, I'm already radiating the sun now. I'm looking so forward to going to Florida. But it's that sun and the exposure to the sun. Now be careful, you don't want to get yourself burnt. But most certainly, there's something about the rays of the sun. It's like God touching you, and that mindfulness and the relaxation. And you want to go for nature hikes and walk along the beach and all those things that just make you feel good. This is what our hormones are all about. Well, then you've got oxytocin there. Oh, yes, the mood hormone. It's all about love. And yes, socializing, physical touch, petting animals. I met someone who actually has a healing horse farm, and how just the intuitiveness of the horse and petting that horse and stroking that horse just really lowers your blood pressure. And one of the neatest things I discovered being a Rotarian is that when I give back and start doing all these activities, and when they get you roped into doing so much, I'm busy more. I'm busier now in retirement than I ever was working, I swear. But it's helping others. It's such a profound, good feeling. And giving back. These are the things that activate oxytocin. And I just want to talk a little about COVID. Because what, for the last 2 years, have we been experiencing? Social isolation, particularly in Canada. We masked, we got immunized. We didn't visit our neighbors or our friends. We were home. And you went to work masked, or you stayed in work at home. And when we had lockdown, we stayed in lockdown. And I remember my sister's kids when I went to meet them, and they were, a couple of years later, I mean, just a few months ago. And those kids made strange. And I thought, I know we were impacted by this, but my God, our children and the developmental stages and problems that they're going to face because of the isolation that we all experienced. It's not easy. It hasn't been easy. And I wonder what's going to go on in the future there in relation to cancer, because the stress of what has happened because of COVID and not only on that, but we're looking, our surgeries are all delayed, cancer surgeries were delayed. And it did have a big impact. So what can we do to help ourselves? What can we do to get those hormones activated? Well, let's just talk about a few more things. We have something in our system called the lymphatic system. And that's all the lymph nodes. Now, this lymphatic system is just outside all the veins and arteries, okay? And they help with fluid balance. But you also have all your lymph nodes under your arms, along the neck, your legs. But you know what? We have 600 lymph nodes in our body. And 80% of them are between here and here, between your shoulders and your hips. And that means 80% of them are in your abdomen. When you're thinking, well, isn't that interesting? Well, the lymphatic system is what is transporting all our white blood cells and our defense mechanisms. Oh, well, not only that, if we're stressing our body so much, and when it's stressed, there's decreased circulation to our abdomen. Because everything is going to exit stage left, our gastric motility's down, so we're not absorbing vitamins. And therefore, if we're not eating properly and we're not absorbing vitamins, how can our lymphatic system get all the good, rich nutrients that it needs to sustain and maintain that homeostasis? How is it going to communicate all the defense mechanisms that it has? We have here digestion. And Dr. Joseph McCullough said 80% of our immune system is in the digestive tract. And yet our fight-flight problems in stress is shutting down and shunting that digestive system. Okay, let's look at what we're eating. So if we're already in a poor state of health, and we're not eating properly, and we're eating on the run, we're not chewing our food, We're eating it whole, and the food that we are eating is not healthy. It's processed food. It's not good, rich vegetables and a diet that's sustaining to our bodies. You see, I'm finding that, are we really a third world country? Because the truth is, if we're not eating properly, we're not getting the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients, the antioxidants. We're not always getting what we truly need. Therefore, we might as well be a third world country because we're eating so poorly, and all the fat and everything else that we don't have, and the exposure to cancers and everything else. We're not feeding ourselves well. And it's about cellular nutrition, right down to the basics of DNA and how everything works well to keep our body functioning as a whole. And Dr. Howard Howell, he said, it's about eating on the run and eating fast and not taking the time to chew our food. You see, when we take the time, and back in the 70s, when we were chewing our food, you had an increase in amylase because you were chewing your food 20 times and you were slowing down. And now we're eating way too fast. And therefore, I think because of the lack of gastric motility, because we're not eating well, because of all that stress, what are some of the things we're experiencing? Irritable bowel syndrome, gastric reflux, constipation, one thing after another, not to mention alcohol, drugs, and all the other things that we're experiencing. We have to be good to our bodies. And yet the Lord and God, everything right here on the planet is here to heal us. Socrates, or I think it was Hippocrates, that said, let food be your medicine, and let medicine be your food. Wow, isn't that an interesting concept? We need to look at maintaining a healthy terrain. Our body wants healthy food. We need the trace minerals and vitamins. I'm not going to recommend any brand. That's up to a naturopath or your doctor. But look what we have for antioxidants, all the fruits and vegetables and the phytonutrients that are in the vegetables. When they say eat the rainbow, you eat the rainbow. Everything is there. There isn't one thing on this earth. And if you ask me kindly, I'll send you the article, Mushrooms and Garlic and the 10 Benefits of Eating Well. There isn't a lot we can do with our pH, but you can play around with it. And I want you to go investigate that yourself, because there are many things out there that you can use to help maintain a more alkaline versus acidic environment in your body. Plant oils. Ladies, when we're cooking, I know our commercials tell us to use margarine when you should be using butter, or all of these other little things like safflower oil, and all these other things that are out there. But you know what? They're not necessarily good for us. We think they are because they're telling us it is. But no, they're not. The best oils are plant oils, being pure virgin olive oil and rich oils from avocados. You know, something I really enjoy is Eggs Benedict. with avocado underneath and béarnaise sauce. Because now that's not necessarily really healthy. There's lots of fat in that, but sure is good. But sometimes you have to live too, because sometimes we restrict ourselves so much, then you go on these binges. So if we are always at least trying by using healthy food and plant oils, drinking lots of water. And I usually average 1.5 to 2 liters a day. Some people need more. Some people may, if you have heart condition, you may not want to have that much. But think about what you're eating and drinking and making sure you're hydrated. Keep that terrain healthy. Make the choice to eat the rainbow. And right now, I'm in Ontario, and this is the fruit and vegetable belt of Canada. And yet, Wendy's is still going strong. It's a scary thought. It's a scary thought. What can we do on a psychosocial basis to make change? Yes, we can diet. And yes, we can slowly make change in our exercise. I fully recommend that you just don't go out and start running around the block, that you be very careful and incrementally, one step at a time, maybe 1 block and then 2 blocks. I have bilateral knee replacements, and I can tell you right now, my knees do not like it if I just overdo it. So there's nothing wrong with finding out what is right for you. Know your limits. I also found that when it comes to managing changes, that it's not just exercise and it's not just diet. We have to think about how stress impacts everything we do. One of the easiest things to implement is meditation, yoga, and prayer. Because I find just the cleansing of prayer and just going through prayer and the love that you feel, it kind of helps that I'm a Reiki master, because feeling that energy in the universe is so profound, helping to heal others. I think that's something along like giving back, because I really find we can help others once we're well. And that's the nice thing I think about our own organization that you have here, Dawn. I really think that it makes a difference that you can get together and work together, talk it out. That lowers stress. This is what change is all about. You can listen to music, you can dance. Remember, you dance like no one's watching and you sing like no one's listening. You don't want to hear me sing. But when it comes to going on vacation or going places or trying to de-stress, it doesn't have to be expensive. Vacation could be just going down to the lake. It could be walking in the woods. It could be walking in the sunshine. You know what? Sometimes just walking in the pouring rain feels so good. But it's like getting back to the basics, getting back to God, getting back to laughter, getting back to play. Look at our children. It's their job to play. Maybe we need to listen and look and play ourselves. Yes, you can change your environment. And yes, I will always recommend professional and psychological counseling if I find that someone needs extra help. Find a creative hobby reading, Reiki, time with your pet, time with your loved ones, time with your children, reading to your children. There's nothing like a big hug. And I have to tell you that my son is a soldier, and this is a kid that, oh my God, you know, his clothes, they never hit the laundry basket, never. And yet when he came home from boot camp and I was helping him pack to go on his first medic training, I found I'm just going to help him. And I started folding his clothes. Mom, you can't do that. You have to fold the shirt in a square like this. And you have to fold my underwear like that. And I said, okay, you do that. I'll just do your socks. Oh, Mom, that's going to stretch the elastic in the ankles. You can't do that. You have to roll them up like this. And they have to be a little, turn the inside out and make a little smiley. You gotta be kidding me, right? This is a kid that couldn't hit the laundry basket, and they turned him into the most wonderful young man. Oh my God. And I look back, and when he was a Cub and a Boy Scout and a rover and adventurer, I lived in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. And the people leading him were the Department of National Defense, General Holt, Peter Holt, and Commander James Peverley, and a director, Mel Embry from the RCMP. He had the best of leaders. And they gave references for him to go in the Army because he hated his first year of university. And they wrote letters of him going across the river, portaging, carrying his canoe, coming back, and then getting all the girls' stuff and helping them carry theirs. And I'm going, what? My son did that? And 3 pages, and I didn't even know him. I didn't even know my son. Take the time to nurture and love your children and love your family and love each other. It's about love. It's about laughter. It's about goodness. It's about keeping God in your family. And I can honestly say, when it comes to the psychological side, we have a balance in everything we do. We have a body that through good exercise and healthy habits, we can make change. But when it comes to cancer, 1/3, only 1/3 is the medical treatment you get. Only 1/3. The second half or third is adopting lifestyle changes, choosing, making a choice. It's a mindset. It is your attitude. It is being positive. The third is accepting and personifying that positive attitude that I'm reflecting right in my poster here. Because health does not come from medicine. It comes from our mind, our whole, our hearts, our soul, from love and laughter. It comes from God. It's about taking care of yourself, not feeling guilty, but being there and supporting one another and our family as we go through trials, because life is not easy today. But it's making a choice to love, to live, and to survive, and to thrive. That is what God wants for all of us. How's my time?
You're good. You got, I mean, we're almost, what, 10 till 6?
So shall we have some questions?
Yes. You know what I wanted you to touch on, because a lot of what you're talking about kind of goes hand in hand with the list that we talked about of people who survive cancer. There's certain characteristics. And you touched on some of them, which is lifestyle changes, right?
Yes.
And when we talk about reducing stress, those key lifestyle changes you hit on were what? Exercise, right? Planning for the future, taking vacations, because I find like a lot of people who are dealing with cancer put everything on hold. They
Yes.
don't think about the future. So can you give us some of those characteristics and how they tie into reducing stress when you're dealing with illness?
You know what I find, Dawn, is that the characteristics that I'm seeing for the women and men that thrive, not only survive, but thrive, is that they reject, they accept the diagnosis, but they reject the prognosis. The first thing they do is say, oh, you're going to die in a year. You don't put a time limit. You choose, you let God choose that moment. You choose to make the change for yourself. You choose to try to take care of yourself. And what I'm finding with every cancer patient is with BeatCancer.Org, and Suzanne, who was the owner of back then, had looked at 70,000 patients. And those 70,000 patients, out of them all, every single one of them targeted stress as the cause for cancer. And I went, whoa, what are we doing to ameliorate this? Because I know when I got the cancer diagnosis, I was like, whoa, the big C, whoa. And nurse or no nurse, okay, I can honestly tell you, I know everything about intensive care nursing. I know everything about neurology, abdomen, cardiovascular medicine. I teach it. I know nothing about breasts other than breastfeeding. I knew nothing. And so I went looking for everything and for all answers. I was crazy. And yet the answers were right in front of me. Not just looking through God, but it was taking one step at a time, backing up and finding, what do I know? Where can I go for to get reliable information? Finding a source. And this is what your organization is doing. But I found that when you take every single one of those patients who took the time to make, number one, a healthy food choices. I'm not saying diet, I'm saying healthy food choices. Because when I first started with this cancer, and my children said, oh, my mom's on the health kick again. Oh God. You can't just, okay, throw everything out of your cupboards that's no good. You're not going to have this. I just simply made changes like fruits and vegetables cut up already in the cupboards and in the fridge. Already having healthy muffins. And they're going, oh, flaxseed muffins again. But the truth is, for all those men out there with prostate cancer or who are worried about prostate cancer in the future.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have something out there called flaxseed muffins. This is a study by the University of Toronto, and they took all the men who had prostate cancer, they divided them in two groups. Those who were going to get muffins, these wonderful brand muffins with flaxseed in them, and the other one just could eat whatever they want and just had their regular routine of cancer treatment. Because we knew, especially during COVID, that it was going to be 3 months before they had their surgery. And do you know what they found for all those men who had flaxseed muffins? A 70% reduction in the size of the cancer cells. And when they looked at the cancer cells under the microscope, a 30% reduction in the DNA activity and 35% change, and to the point that there's what they call apoptosis. Cells have actually died. Like, holy cow. Sometimes we don't even stop and realize it's not about cancer, it's about prevention. I say, make those flaxseed muffins now and worry about it later. An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure.
And we can say some of the same things for garlic, because you talked about the studies on garlic and green tea. Can you share some of that with us?
Oh my gosh. There are so many studies out there. What I can tell you is let's look at the Cornell University. They did a study on apples. You know, the apple a day keeps the doctor away? Well, Cornell University did a long-term study, 30-year study so far, guys. And what did they find? All the families that ate apples had a 70% decrease in cancer. Hello? What's an apple a day in the lunch for the kids? It's about starting your practices young, when the kids are young. And that's where we need to start. Not only prevention, but I'm finding for all of the patients, when they first start and get that cancer diagnosis, you're going to be going through with the deer in the headlights and all the treatment and everything you have to experience, especially chemo, especially radiation, that you have to concentrate on nutrients, okay? Eating well. That is really important. And also, afterwards, how do I reduce stress? Because the whole process of cancer is so stressful. And how can you change your own environment at home and institute relaxation so that you're managing all of this stress? And a lot of things is having support groups, so that you can learn together and share. It's about sharing. What works for her may not work for somebody else. But when you do a combination of different therapies and different things, and they don't have to be expensive, they can be walking in the woods, it can be anything. It's about making healthy changes. Every time you make an adaptive change and you change to set a positive mindset and keep focused on where you want to go, that is where you will find the richness and the strength to keep going and to keep a positive mindset. It is a choice. Love is a choice. Prayer is a choice. Your family is a choice. But the biggest choice is one big happy family of love. Because when we can work together, it makes a difference. But I also found that there were some members of my family who were not supportive, and I had to remove myself from them. So you have to guard as well. It's like putting on that Christian armor.
And that's yeah, that's huge. That's huge. So when we talk about reducing stress, we've had previous speakers talk about putting themselves in a bubble, turning off the TV, right? Not watching the news. You know, if you need to know the weather or what's going on in the world, you can get little snippets off of your phone. But sitting in front of the TV all day long, what do we see? Negativity. I think somebody mentioned, you know, doctors scaring the heck out of cancer patients who are initially diagnosed, right? So you're walking in fear. But if you're flooding your life with that one slide that you had, where you're listening to praise and worship music, where you're praying. I love what Rachel said, where she takes her prayer walks. Because when I walk in nature, that's what I do. I'm talking to God, right? Or I'm listening to praise and worship, or I'm listening to a good podcast that's educating me on some of the things you're talking about, which foods to eat, right? So when we talk about people who survive cancer, she talked about the first one, they accept the diagnosis and they reject the prognosis. But participation, initiative, and commitment. They take the commitment, the initiative to that process, to their healing process. And like she said, sometimes it's not easy, but we have to make those changes where we are, number one, in protection mode over ourselves, right? And our body, right?
Correct.
And trying to keep all that negativity out. And you don't have to tell everybody. That's one thing that drives me crazy, that when somebody's diagnosed, they think they have to tell everybody. Why? If they're not going to be supportive and they're not going to be in your corner and they're not going to be part of your healing team, is what I call it, they don't need to know. They don't need to know. Because then what are you going to get if you say, I'm doing things naturally? What have we all gotten, right? We've all gotten that barragement of, how come you're doing it that way? Why are you eating that way? Is that really going to help? You don't need that. So that's one good thing I really like about what you said. Introspection, right? Use their illness for personal learning and growth. Resolving losses, completing grief work, and self-actualizing, because you said, seek the help that you need.
Yes.
That's another thing that will help keep stressors down, right?
Absolutely.
And then transformation of personal relationships. I've had several conversations this week where people have said that diagnosis has transformed their relationships with the person who was diagnosed or with the people in their life, that it's become more calming, that they become more supportive. That's who you gravitate towards, right?
And I really feel it's important for women, especially with breast cancer, or even abdominal cancer, and especially people who have colostomies and, the change in your body image. Yeah. It is so huge. It is so profound. Even having intimacy and feeling comfortable, and us women supporting each other, and that we can learn from each other about how we've approached the people we love, so that they can come to accept where we're at, and then slowly bring us on board. And you can learn to love again. The nicest thing about cancer, what happened to me, it was that eye-opening opportunity to share. And as I feel, when I had that cancer, I was just in this cocoon, and I didn't want to hear anything else, because I was up to here and do this, do that, and everyone's opinion. And it really came down to choosing what is right for you. And when you stop and look at where you're going to go, what you want to do, make effective choices, take the time to learn, ask questions. I can honestly tell you, a cancer coach is worth the money to do it. By the way,
full disclosure, she's a cancer coach through BeatCancer.Org, which is a really good source of information. That's where I got the cancer report, and they identify traits of people who get cancer. They talk a lot about suppressed anger, right? One of the traits of people who get cancer, and those who survive it. So it's a very balanced report. So that's why, but she's trained in facilitating their program.
And I find the thrivers, the one thing they're doing when they thrive is they're balancing their lives. That immunological, that's your body, your mind, your spirit. They are balancing, whether eating, their activity, their placement with God, their love in their family, and everything they're doing is based on balance. And that makes a difference. That cocoon, if you want to be a butterfly, that change occurs slowly. It's not overnight. It's by making steady changes, recognizing, Dawn, that it is a process that you move through. We can't cure our patients overnight. The doctors don't cure their patients overnight. You slowly move and adopt change and grow. And you grow with one another. And that will help you broaden those wings so that you can take off and fly.